Welcome to this episode of the Superyacht Laundry podcast. I am very excited today because I've got a lovely lady back on the podcast. It's been a while. You were actually one of my first interviewees.
I
So,
was.
hello to Jayn. How you doing, my love? It's been a while.
Yeah, it has been a while. Yeah, I'm okay. Yeah, getting on.
So, just to kind of, if listeners have not listened to your previous episode, my journey started kind of tied in with your journey. I started Yacht Pearls of Wisdom. Well, got the idea of doing Yacht Pearls of Wisdom, but at the same time, unfortunately, your daughter was very poorly um, uh, with cancer, and yeah, I feel like our lives have been entwined for a
Yeah,
very long time now, haven't
yeah,
they?
definitely. Yeah.
So yeah, just to if anybody's listening to this and haven't heard the could you just tell us how fabulous Gem was and a little bit about what happened before we go on to what you're doing now?
Yeah, so Gemma was a yacht stew. She was a florist, so she was known as floating florista in the well, it started off in the yachting industry, but it expanded into obviously when she ended up back on land again. And yeah, she was just a beautiful soul. Everyone loved her that she come across. She was, yeah, just very kind, loving, generous, thoughtful. She loved her job. She loved being in the yachting industry. I think she wishes she'd started doing it sooner,
Oh,
you
don't
know.
we all? We all do that when we get on board. Most of us are like,
Yeah, exactly. What I've been doing for the last 10 years. You know, certain things happen in life and you go down different paths and that's, that's the path you take. And she ended up, yeah, in the yachting industry, following her brother out there, who'd been out there for quite a while. And yeah, she loved it and she just climbed the ladder really quickly. And yeah, the best thing she ever done, with her life that and sadly in 20, after her second routine smear test when she was 28, she was diagnosed completely out of the blue with cervical cancer. She'd had no symptoms, no illness. She was healthy. Everyone who knows Gemma or knew Gemma knows that she was, always on the go, always doing something. She practiced yoga every day. I mean, she grew up being a dancer and a fitness freak, and that's what she done for years and years and years until she went out onto the yachts. And once she was on the yachts, obviously she couldn't dance and she couldn't do a lot of things that she was used to doing. So she practiced her yoga a lot more. She'd go hiking if she was off. She loved to walk. Yeah, she was very fit and healthy. Always was throughout her life. And this just came from out of the blue, nowhere. So it was obviously a huge shock. And what was diagnosed originally in February 2020 with early stages of cervical cancer, within 6 months had developed into stage 4 cancer. They said it was incurable but treatable. So then began the journey that she went through with, many procedures and surgeries and treatments and, the usual chemo and radiotherapy and everything. She'd done really well. She'd done really, really well for a year. You wouldn't even think if you didn't know Gemma, you wouldn't even think she was going for anything if you saw her when she was having chemo because she was so positive, so determined to beat it, and just looked really well considering what she was going through. And then she went into remission at the beginning of 2021, which was great. For 3 months, she was trying to get her life back together, planning on going back to work, being Gemma again, practicing her yoga again, doing her walks, her hair was growing, everything was going really well. And then she had her 3-month checkup, which they said she would be having every 3 months for the next 5 years. Once they said she was in remission, she'd have a scan and blood tests. And from that first scan, for the first 3 months, they found 2 lesions on her liver that was consistent to the cancer that she had, which meant that it was back again. And then from there, it escalated and just spread over her liver. It went to despite more procedures and treatments, it went to her back.
yeah, she put up
And
a really good fight, didn't she?
yeah, yeah, she did. She was so I mean, for that first year, she was so, so positive and determined to beat it and get her life back. I used to take her out, and even when she was in her wheelchair, I used to take her out, and she'd say to me, I just want my life back. I'm gonna beat this. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna," and she was so positive. But when it came back and she started having the issues with her liver, after the first procedure she had to try and, get rid of the lesions that was on her liver, she was never Gemma that she was in that 3 months again. She just, I don't know, she just felt so ill all the time, and I felt there was a lot more going on, but they just kept saying to me it was, the after effects of this liver ablation that she'd had, and she will get over it, and just to monitor blood pressure and temperature and things like that, which was all fine, but she just wasn't right in herself, and then it turns out it was because it had got into her back, and she started having a lot more sort of like therapy and stuff, like physiotherapy and nutrition help and all sorts of things, different medications and more chemo, and it just become very, very aggressive very, very quickly. Yeah, and then we found out a couple of months later it was in her back, and then it ended up in her brain, and that's when they said they couldn't do anything else for her apart from the immunotherapy that we'd originally talked about, which we originally didn't have the money for, which then, amazingly the money was raised for. But at that particular time, they said that she was too poorly to take the immunotherapy because you have to be at a certain fitness level for certain treatments, and for the clinical trials, you have to be a certain fitness level. So they said that as much as they couldn't do anything for her right that minute, they'd exhausted everything on the NHS. They said that they will monitor her for the next 3 or 4 weeks and see how she goes, and then
Yeah.
we'll talk about the immunotherapy again, because by then, obviously, we had the money, but unfortunately, it just didn't happen because she just deteriorated really quickly. Yeah, and then we lost her in October 2021, which was 20 months from the original diagnosis.
And I literally my first ever event, was her funeral.
Mm.
So when I had my first event, because it was really clear when I started Yacht Pearls of Wisdom, it was just trying to spread information for women on board. And at that point, I'd only ever focused on like financial stuff and like trying to make it had not really dawned on me until Jem's story that actual physical health is impacted by being on board. There's stuff
Mhm.
that women need to consider when they're going traveling, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, well, I don't think anyone really. Yeah, it probably crossed people's minds, but I think until, we didn't. When she was away, we didn't think about it. It's just when she came home she had her leave in October 2019, which coincidentally coincided with her second smear test appointment. And, she had that done, went back to work, thought everything was fine. And then a couple of weeks later, the letter came through to say that it was abnormal and they wanted to see her again within the next 3 months. But then she was back in the States. So then she had a little bit of a panic about where she was going to have it done because she didn't want to have it done over there. And I said, well, if you're that adamant you don't want to have it done there, which you're mad because you're in America and it's meant to be the best place in the world for medical things, then book your appointment, fly home the day before, have your appointment, fly back the next day if you can get the
I
3 days.
think I think, with women, it's quite an intimate, thing. Do you know what I mean? I can
It's
see
very
from
it's
her perspective, she wanted to come and have it. She didn't want to go to a strange doctor in a strange land type thing, and I can kind of get that.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, I got it totally, but I said, if you can do that, then do that. But, you know what it's like in the yachting industry when you're at work, and the logistical side of it just wasn't working. It was, the flights was ridiculously expensive. The boat was moving about. It was just, she couldn't
yeah.
do it. So she had to have it done over there, which turned out to be okay in the end. She was all right about it. She went to a nice place. I think it was in Palm Beach, where she went. And, yeah, but then obviously from there she had to go again and then again, and then she got referred to another doctor, and it just went on and on and on until she was referred to a gynecologist in Miami, and that was in February. After doing more tests, they came back with the diagnosis.
Oh, I think one of the things with Gem's boat, like Gem's boat was very supportive.
Yeah, they was,
They
yeah.
were, they did let her, but a lot of boats, when we first covered it, when I did an event in the south of France, like a girl came up after hearing your story and Gem's story. She was like, my captain said that it's not necessary. She said she was due to get a smear and she needed to get it done. He was like, well, it's optional, isn't it?
I remember you telling me a yeah, I remember you telling me about.
It's optional, like, no, it's not, unfortunately, because if it was optional, none of us would get it done, if
Exactly.
you know what I mean. We all know that we have to get it done.
Yeah.
It's just, obviously that was a few years ago now, but it's still, women need to understand that it doesn't matter. You have to get it
Well,
done. And
you
now
know,
either the boat's with you or not. And I would just kick up a massive stink about it because that's what boat expenses are for. That's what insurance is for. If you had a tooth fell out, or an abscess, the boat would pay for that.
yeah, yeah,
Do
exactly,
you know
yeah,
what I mean? So it just blew my mind. But
yeah.
what the work that you've done, so obviously after Jem passed, what did you have it in your mind to do next?
So, we had the idea of setting up the Floating Florista Foundation in memory of Gemma and to basically spread awareness of the importance of cervical screening, which in the UK was originally called smear test. It's now called cervical screening, and how important it is to keep having your routine tests because in Gemma's case, like she had no symptoms, and there's all these platforms and charities and all these people out there that talk about symptoms all the time, look out for this, look out for that, which we all read about, we all see, we all know what they are. But what if there's no symptoms, like in Gemma's case? It's my when I go out and do these talks. Well, I mean, I've done a few talks now. I'd like to go out and do more, but I'm hoping to sort of get some more funding to be able to go out and do more of these talks to spread the awareness and talk about how important they are and the fact that nowadays, well, probably for I don't know, quite a while now, girls and boys they're having sex at a lot younger ages. So take for instance, if a young lady was having sex at 15 and she's not having her cervical screening until she's 25, which is another story about when they start and how often they're done. But she's not having her first cervical screening until she's 25. That's 10 years of intimate relationships, with things that could be going on inside that she doesn't know about because there's no symptoms. If there is symptoms, fine, she'd go to the doctor and say, I've got this symptom or whatever. But when there's no symptoms, as in Gemma's case, by the time she's 25, that's 10 years. Now, in that 10 years, so much could have happened. And, I've met a lot of bereaved mothers over the last 5 years, which is really sad. But that's, where I am in my life now. And one of the women that I met, her daughter had bowel cancer for 4 years. They was, fluffing her off with different excuses, and it's this and it's that and it's not. And when they finally actually diagnosed her, it was too late. It was stage 4. It was, so I go out and go out and I want to go out more and do these talks and I tell Gemma's story, as I'm talking, you can see photos of Gemma, looking all lovely at work and out of work and here, there and everywhere. But in amongst it, I've also put photos of Gemma when she was poorly and when she was very sick to make a point to women that you can go from this to this within a matter of months, if you don't know what's going on. And, even when she was diagnosed and she was having treatments, I mean, we had so many conversations and I'd say to her, was there anything that you can look back on that you can think, that doesn't feel right, or oh, that's a bit uncomfortable. And she said there was nothing. I mean, she never really. I think she used to get period bellyache and the usual stuff, but she said there was never anything
That
that she thought
abnormal.
was that was not right to actually do something about it. So that's how it can be. And I just want to keep going out and talking as much as I can. About keeping up with your cervical screening especially when you're working away from home. I mean, obviously on the yachts now, the rotations are very common. So it's 3 on, 1 off, or 2 on, 2 off, whatever rotation you're on. But I know on cruise ships, I've spoken to girls on cruise ships that their contracts are like 6 to 8 months long. So that's even worse. They don't get home, for 6 to 8 months at a time. And one of the cruise ships, I left some packs that I give to you when you put on your goodie bags, and they were so appreciative of it, and they've spread the word around, and they've said to me, you need to get out and get on more, get it on all the ships, get it out there so that women take notice as well as the yachts. And just to remind women that, when you do get time off, schedule that appointment in if it's due, or even if it's not due, and it's playing on your mind, or there's something, for the sake of, I think it's about £130 a year to have, £130 a time to have a private cervical screening, rather than, as we have to wait in the UK, 3 to 5 years, which is more 5 years now than anything if you haven't got the
5 years. It's 5 years. I mean, I've had abnormal smears come back and everything else. Like, I'm in the 5-year pattern now for me to get screened. It's just not, it's one of those, it is a thing, no woman it's not a pleasurable experience. I was talking about something the other day, and they used the word scrape, and I'm just like, ugh. Just that word scrape, and I'm like, why do I have such an aversive reaction to the word
Yeah,
scrape? And I know why, because
yeah,
that's what they
yeah.
do to us.
Well, yeah,
Like, I can't remember what it was, but there's some people it's like, scrape, and I was like,
yeah.
ugh. All
It's
right.
like those words. Yeah, I
Um
what's the other word that everyone's like, "Ooh."
obviously I've had kids, I had a child now, so it's just like you become slightly more immune because you've had like a whole team of medical professions up your vagina at
Yeah.
any one time. So you become a bit numb to it. But obviously when you're younger, it's just not very nice. And going back to how Jem was, she wanted to come back to a UK doctor to feel more comfortable and everything like that. I mean, we all understand why why you don't want to, but you just got to.
Yeah.
It's a very small part of your health and well-being as a whole.
Well,
And
it
I
is.
think with the stress with working on board, obviously you saying that you didn't notice anything abnormal. The amount of women on board that have irregular periods, they have
Yeah, I
all
thought
sorts
that.
of things going on because of the stress and hormone levels, and they might be dieting at the same time. We've covered a lot of these things previously, which the boat insurance, medical cover covers these things. When I've spoken to Medair, most common thing is, UTIs
Yeah,
and not taking your contraceptive out there, and just not planning ahead for your own, health.
yeah.
But I think, it has got a lot better. I mean, we've not covered obviously this topic specifically for a while. Obviously, the last time I did, I got a girl come up and basically a captain basically said, "Oh, it's just optional, and you don't need to get it." First of all, that's not your decision whether it's optional or
But
not.
yeah.
But no, it's not.
Well, that's why I wanna meet, like, even when I do the talks, like, I want men to be there, like, obviously I've done that talk at the Superyacht, charities ball, which was, there's 500 people there, and there was a lot of men there. I'm sure there was some captains and chief officers and whatever that have all got sisters, daughters, wives, girlfriends, females in their lives, and went away thinking something different to what that they hadn't thought about before after they listened to Gemma's story. When I've been on to a couple of yachts and done some talks to some interior teams, and I said the guys are welcome to listen in and stand in as well, so they understand it as well, especially the captains and the chief officers. They need to understand how important it is. It's the same as the guys. Like, the guys need to check themselves as well, and if they find a lump, they're going to need to go and get it checked out. So is a captain going to say to a guy on board, the chief officer or whoever, or is it necessary?
Yeah.
Because he should, it's the same thing. It swings both ways. It's the same for men as it is for women. And it's not just your smear test. Women have to check their boobs as well regularly because I've got a very, very dear friend now who lost her daughter a year before me. She was diagnosed with breast cancer when she was 21. She lost her when she was 25. People say it about Gemma as well, but she's too young. She's fit and healthy. She's this and that. And I said, it doesn't matter how old or young or fat or thin or tall or short or what colour you are. If it's going to get you, it's going to get you. Doesn't matter. So everybody needs to be aware of this. And the Guyanese around the world list was compiled by yourself and Gemma Holbert, and it's available on the Yacht Stew website to look up. So there's reputable English speaking gynecologists that have been recommended that are on this list all around the world. It's also in the Super Yacht Services Guide. So if anyone is worried about where they are and, oh my God, I'm in the Caribbean, I don't want to go to a grotty, there will be an option on now to look up. I had actually a young lady dancer on one of the cruise ships that I'd been on a while ago. She messaged me a couple of weeks ago and said, "Can you help? One of the girls needs to see a gynecologist she's in America." and they was having problems trying to get onto the link that that she had from me. But, I think I don't know, they must have been getting a bit confused with it because when I went onto it, it was fine, and I just ended up screenshotting the whole thing rather than sending them the link, and they looked through it, and she was really grateful that I sort of sent it all to her, and she could get to see someone. So, anywhere you are in the world, you can see a gynecologist.
After, obviously trying to do the Floating Florista Foundation and everything else, what's it like trying to stay motivated and achieve something? It's been a
It's not
long time now.
It's not easy. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it's not easy. I've been suffering with my mental and physical health, a lot. I'm trying to work on myself to get through without so much happening all the time, so much noise going on all the time. But there is a lot going on in my head all the time, 24/7. So I find myself I'm on a emotional roller coaster, which I know I'm going to be on for the rest of my life. And some days, some weeks, I sort of feel okay, and I think, right, okay, I get all motivated. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that, and then something really simple might come into my head, or something might remind me of something or something, and then it just completely throws me again. And then I could be for days just not wanting to do anything again. So it is hard. And as much as I want to get out there and I want to do these talks, and sometimes I can talk, I'm absolutely fine. Some days I can't talk without breaking down. So the days that I do feel okay is when I try and get as much done as I can. And then if I don't do anything for days or weeks, then that's fine. I'll go back to it. But the reason, obviously, we're talking again now is because in June it's Cervical Screening Awareness Week. It's the 15th to the 21st of June. So I thought it would be a good time to obviously, pop up again and remind everyone about their cervical screening and how important it is to make the appointment, keep the routine checkups going. If you haven't made
We need to get everybody's attention. What can we do? We can perhaps say so like, "Get the scrape." Maybe I should have a strap.
Oh, no. You can't use the word scrape. That would definitely put everyone
Get
off.
the scrape. Go
But,
for it.
I mean, I never like the statistics show that 1 in 3 women have not been for their, cervical screening tests. So in the UK, that is like probably, I think I read it's around like 5 million women that haven't attended or are overdue, or I mean, that figure needs to come down drastically. They say that, this HPV is helping with cervical cancer and stuff, but I don't know if, young girls and women are going to have unprotected sex and the HPV's there. And, the HPV is the cause of the most common cervical cancer, which grows from the inside of the cervix out. But Gemma had the rare form of cervical cancer, which grew on the outside of her cervix, which they explained to us in America that a nun who doesn't have sex could get this. So, there's different HPV, there's all different variations of HPV, and the higher the levels are in your blood tests and the tests that they do, it's more likely that you could develop cervical cancer. And so many people have HPV. Don't I mean, if you have got HPV and you're told you've got HPV, don't panic. It's not like you haven't got like, AIDS or syphilis or anything like that. It's a virus that lives inside probably 99% of all of us. We've all had it at some time. I know I've had it, but it's not treatable. They don't give you anything for it. You don't even know it's there. It just lives in your body for a couple of years and then it'll pass. Sometimes it doesn't. I do know someone that had it for quite a number of years, which was quite concerning, but it went in the end. But yeah, so it's not, if your tests come back and it says, oh, you've got HPV, don't panic, because it doesn't mean, it's just,
It's a tricky one. Like I said, perhaps my strap line, "Get the scrape," is probably not the best.
no,
You've
but
got to it's crap, It's it's a horrible thing that you have to go and do, but you just have to do it. You've just got to suck it up. These are the joys of being women. It's just
well,
one of those
exactly.
other added little bonuses that we have to experience. We were
I know.
born a woman. So
But I
you
want
just
the guys to
crack on.
encourage them as well. I want the guys to encourage speak to them about it. Don't be like it's a taboo subject. Like, if you're in a relationship or you've got a sister or, a female in your life that you care about, talk about it. Don't be scared. Just say, oh, have you had a psychological screening recently? If you got one booked, just talk about it. And especially on board, and especially if you're new on board, that's the worst thing, like frightened to ask anyone to be able to do anything. But if you have got an issue and a problem that you're worried about, then speak to your superior and speak to someone who you feel comfortable speaking to, and start the ball rolling to be able to get off. I know a few girls that obviously where it's been talked about for a few years now. I think one of the girls out on TV said to me that her doctor would be quite happy to go on board and like do like a mass cervical screening amongst like the interior crew if that's what they needed, which I thought was quite a good idea if it was all kind of, you know, the right time for everyone. But I don't really know how it would actually.
I don't know about that. There's lots of group activities. I don't know whether that would be on my, even if we go for a bottle of, Whispering Angel afterwards, it might, it's not probably high on my list. But I get what you're saying. The thing is,
Yeah,
I do think, the mentality on board is changing, like, because a lot more information. There's some great, fabulous women that specialize in hormones and stuff. Because obviously, fertility is another thing. You should at least get it done. Because if you want kids in the end, you need all of that kind of working and hormone levels and just getting your screening done. It's just all part of that process of staying healthy down there. So yeah, we need to make sure. I don't know. I think maybe get the scrape might be. Oh, does this like something sadistic about us?
we have the hashtag, the Do It for Gem hashtag, which is quite good.
That's
I was.
nicer than get the scrape for
Yeah, I
sure.
mean, the first couple of years, first few years, I was getting a lot of messages, through social media, different platforms and stuff, and girls that I didn't know, they was messaging me saying, "Oh, I just wanted to let you know that I've booked my appointment or I've had my smear test, and then let me know if it's fine." And they'd hashtag and they'd put pictures up and put hashtag Do It for Gem, which I thought was really lovely. And I really would like that to continue because I think it kind of works quite well. But yeah, but going back to that Super Yacht charity event, I mean, I met so many women after. It was quite funny because I ended up in the toilet and I couldn't get out of the toilet. That it just ended up
Standard.
in this big mass group talk in the toilet. And every time I went to go, someone else come in and joined in the conversation and talked about the talk and Gemma and blah, blah,
A
blah.
women thing to do.
It was quite funny. But I remember one woman coming in and I think she said she was about 38 years old and she'd never had a smear test done. And we was all like, my God, what do you mean you've never had a smear test done? We all kind of jumped on her. I think she was a bit like a rabbit in headlights. And she went, "Well, I never got a letter. I was waiting for a letter." And I said, "You don't wait for a letter. You have to go and have." And I
Mm.
said to her, "Please, please, please, please make an appointment and please have a test done and message me and let me know." And I've never ever heard from her. And I often think about her and think, did she ever get it done? Is she all right? But
Oh,
so many women were saying the same sort of things. They've been on yachts, they haven't had time, or they've forgotten, and now because of obviously the exposure of Gemma's story and seeing things on social media about it and everything, it has jogged a lot of them and it has sort of like pushed them all to do it. I don't get so many messages now, but for the first few years, it was very, I was getting quite a lot.
well, we'll hope that we can raise awareness again. It's not something that's gone away, but I do hold out hope that the industry has got a lot better and a lot more understanding, because there have been quite a few cases of our male counterparts, suffering. So crew members in general, different stuff affects both of us. So
Yeah.
it just needs to be
'Cause I
dealt
do
with. There's no stigma about it. It's just part of what life on board. So
Yeah, I
we
do
will
see
be.
things. I see things, I'm on groups and Instagram and stuff. And obviously, Gemma's brother Charlie's still out in the industry. He's been out there for 14 years. And so I still like to see what's going on. And I see I mean, there was probably a lot going on before, but since we lost Gemma, I feel like, all the mental health thing has become very, very big in the industry. Everything, what happened to poor Paige Bell and, I feel like there is a lot more going on now with health and safety, and it's great. I mean, I read things all the time. I'm on different groups and stuff that, I've just always followed things and I read things, don't always interact with it, but I keep up with what's going on out there. And it's great that everyone is, you know, doing these things and trying to change and, the thoughts of everyone out there, especially the captains that, can be, well,
Yeah.
that's not important. Well, yeah, I'm sorry, it is. But, I've just done another article for Woman's Own magazine, which is coming out, I think, on the 9th of June, which is coinciding with the cervical. They've done it for the Cervical Screening Awareness Week. So, that'll be out there. So if, not probably our age, don't really read Woman's Own, but it is out there. It's going to be out there. It'll be online. So, people can read for it again. You can go to the website and read about Gemma's story. Cherise always puts my packs into her goodie bags at the yacht shows and events and things. So look out for those because they've got the QR code to take you to the Guyanese around the world lists and just a bit of information and a reminder, really. And if you do end up with one of these packs or you do end up with floating Florisa or do it for gem leaflets anywhere around, then put them up on your board where the girls can see them and the guys can see them just to, take notice and encourage
We
each other.
we will definitely spread the word, obviously, at the beginning of June, but I am doing the crew welfare bags this Monaco. So if you're a crew
Yeah.
member and you end up in Monaco, you want to get your hands on one of the bags, and we'll have the details in that as well. Thank you so much for coming on again, Jane. I really
Right.
appreciate it.
Lovely catching up with you.
And yes, again, a fabulous message that needs to be repeated over and over and over again.
Yeah, I think we'll stick with hashtag do it for Gem now until we Cherise thinks of something a little bit better than
Getting to scrape. No, it's definitely something we need to keep repeating. But thank you very much for coming on.
yeah, make sure you look after yourselves and keep up with your screening and appointments and, just look up the gynaes around the world if you're somewhere where you're not sure about, and there will be a recommended gynecologist on there.
Perfect. Yeah. So yes, Superyacht Services Guide, Waiting for Us to Foundation. We've got it on ours. There's tons of information, but there's no excuse and there's no reason. If your captain's saying no, leave the boat because he's obviously a dickhead.
Yeah.
So you're probably better off trying to find a better job.
Yeah.
So if you've enjoyed this as an episode, listeners, we've got more to come. But thank you very much, Jane. Until next time,
Bye.
take care. Bye.